Hi everyone, I'm Sebastian Boyer, the Approved Guy. Welcome to the Approved Guy channel. On this video, I'm going to be interviewing Brandon Clifford, the CEO of Business Alliance Inc., which is a franchise professional network servicing brokers, suppliers, and brands in the franchise space. Without further ado, let's get right to it. Hi Brandon, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Sebastian. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, thank you. So, Brandon, if you could tell us just a little bit about your background, your journey, and then we'll land on Business Alliance and your position and what all the great things you're doing there.
Sure. Yeah. No. Thanks for having me. Like I said, excited to be here. I mean, you and I have go way back, probably I don't know, 10, 15 years ago at this point, right? My journey, my story, I guess, it started way back in my early 20s. I got into business ownership. I've always been sort of like an entrepreneur at heart, and I really grew up in an entrepreneurial household that goes back even further than that. I remember actually back in second grade, I started a paper route, so like I kind of always worked for myself and been my own boss and whatnot. But owned some restaurants early in my career. I was in business with my father at the time. We grew from one location up to three. I was a newly married individual with no children when I first started in the restaurant space. And then, 10 and a half, 12 years later, I now had four kids. And the restaurant space maybe wasn't the best fit anymore for myself and my family. So I transitioned out of that, sold my stores. And that's when I found the franchise industry. And it's funny, you hear this story about franchising or the franchise space from a lot of different professionals where they kind of like fall into it.
Mm-hmm.
And my story is no different than that. I didn't really even know a lot about franchising, the industry, or anything like that. But what I found very quickly was because franchising at its core is like this altruistic business model where it's like people helping people in business,
Yeah.
people building a business model, a delivery system, whatever it might be, but then um, giving it to another individual to help them fulfill their dreams of business ownership. Of course, in exchange for a royalty and an initial franchise fee, and there's business economics that go with it, right? But it attracts these like-minded individuals who are, like I said, altruistic and want to genuinely help one another. So yeah, now I've been in the franchising space for 15 years. You and I go back to almost when I first got started. Here I am today, CEO of one of the largest franchise professional networks in the country.
Amazing, amazing. And that's Business Alliance Inc., correct?
Yeah, Business Alliance Inc. So I started with BAI actually as a franchise broker. So BAI, we have three different types of members. We have brokers they're kind of like independent agents, very similar to a real estate agent, but
Right.
instead of helping people find homes, they help them find businesses, help them find franchise businesses specifically, right? Then we have franchise companies, so brands
Mm-hmm.
who are a lot of emerging brands, 20 to maybe 50, 60 locations. And then we have some that have five, 600 locations worldwide, but they're looking to grow. They're
Okay.
looking to find new business owners, new franchise owners in different markets, and so they work with our consultants, our brokers, to help identify who is their ideal franchisee, and then the brokers go out and find them for them, right? And then we have suppliers, so people similar to the approved guy, lenders who want to help fund, because there's a lot of elements that go into the franchise process. It's not just like, oh, I want a piece of this. I want to own a coffee shop, or I want to own a chicken franchise, or I want to own a cleaning franchise, whatever it might be. You got to find the financing, you got to find the location. So you might need a commercial real estate guy. You're going to need an attorney to review the franchise agreement. There's a lot of different ancillary items that come into play.
Mm-hmm.
Suppliers who support the franchise industry like that, whether it's due diligence or even launching their business, those are also members in our network.
Okay. So you said there were three. There's the brokers that help facilitate and find the franchises like a real estate agent would for someone trying to find a home. Then there's
Mm-hmm.
the actual brands, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you're promoting, and then there's the individual looking to find a franchise.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's also suppliers, like I said, so
Suppliers.
lenders, attorneys, like all
Right.
the people who support the franchise buying and selling
Right.
process,
Right.
So yeah, and our brokers become very much like a shoulder to lean on,
Mm-hmm.
a confidant, a coach, a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Because when it comes to when someone's seeking to invest in a business, it usually starts like this. They start okay, I'm sick of my job, or I just got laid off,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. There's some change in their life that's making them want to go out on their own and
Right.
start a business. Okay? So they're like, okay, well, what should I do? Oh, I don't have any good ideas. Okay, so maybe I should buy a business.
Hmm.
And then they look on Main Street, they look on bizbuysell.com or some
Hmm.
website, in their on their local area, businesses for sale. And then they see, okay, those businesses are either really really expensive. If it's a good business, you're going to pay upwards of $1 million for good cash flow, right? And maybe they don't have that.
Right.
Or if it's the 200 $300,000, not that there's anything wrong with those businesses per se, but a lot of times they're almost like a fixer upper, right? They're going to need more equity, more effort, more energy to get it going. So then they start thinking about it, like, do I want to invest my time and my energy, my effort, just to fix someone else's mistakes? Sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it's a launching pad where they can get going. Like a resale is a good idea. But
Hmm.
other times people look at it and they turn to the franchise model,
Hmm.
where it's a little bit of a hybrid of both. They can start with a fresh territory, a fresh location, you know, uh, but plug into a system, a business model that's been proven in other markets across the country.
Hmm.
Maybe like I live up here in the Northeast in New Hampshire, right? So maybe I'm looking to get into a business, and there's none of this particular franchise in Southern New Hampshire just yet, right?
Right.
But I have, maybe there's four franchisees on the South Shore of Massachusetts, 2.5, 3 hours away,
Hmm.
so there's slight name recognition, right?
Right. Right.
Or there's at least, some proven business or proven way of attracting business that I can plug into. And that's why
Right.
people like the franchise model, because you kind of get both the I guess the sizzle of a startup, but then the predictability of a resale.
Right. Because there's a template, right? There's a pattern
Mhm.
that you follow. So the chance of success is a lot higher versus starting from scratch, creating something brand new and going through the trials and errors of figuring it all out on your own.
Like one thing just to piggyback, because that's a great point, but it also, the thing about being a business owner that I know you've been there, and I know it also can be very lonely
Mm.
being a business owner. Like when you're like the boss and
Yeah.
you're calling all the shots, it can be very lonely. And if you want a pizza shop, say, all right, and you're wondering where to get a good price on pizza boxes, and you call up a pizza box, even a pizza shop, even that's, I don't know, 5 towns over from you, so it's not a competitor,
Yeah.
and you're like, hey, where do you get your pizza boxes? They're gonna hang up on you, right?
Yeah.
But if you're in a franchise and you own a Papa John's,
Yeah.
you can go on the internet, whatever, whatever their like system is, and chime in, hey guys, where can I get the best prices on corrugated boxes? And you'll have
Sure.
5 different or 10 different franchisees be like, oh, I order them from here. Or the
Right.
franchisor just has a vendor that you get it from that
Already set
is
up
the
for you.
best
Yeah.
place and it's the
No,
right
that's
quality,
huge
right?
because that cuts back my learning curve and trial and error and just confidence that I'm doing the right thing. I'm making the best decision with that vendor versus
Mm-hmm.
maybe even I feel like I am, but I'm being taken for a ride. So
Mm-hmm.
that's huge because again, as a
Mm-hmm.
startup, helping businesses myself with the funding side, and then going back and speaking to folks later on, I a lot of startups just fail. Pure startups. I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about pure startups, and because they didn't know what they didn't know, they couldn't anticipate what was coming. Which is why I stress to them they should really build a business plan so they could try to
Mm-hmm.
predict the future. But again, with the franchise model, a lot of that predictability is built into the model and the template and the support that's given. So let me ask us. A lot of folks that I talk to that I'm helping now with like credit and getting ready for funding or building and creating their own business banking system. A lot of these people are asking me, Sebastian, do you have any suggestions of where I can direct my funds? I have this 401k or I have this
Mm-hmm.
savings and I want to make money. I want to do something. I don't want to do a full time thing. I want to do something a little bit more passive. So in the
Mm-hmm.
franchise space, is it a passive or are semi passive opportunities?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I get a little apprehensive with throwing around the word passive investment, right? I think there's no such thing as a passive business. I mean, you can build passive income, right?
Right.
And but that takes years and effort and energy and investment to get to that point. And so while a franchise does give you the ability to plug into a system, things like you said, to save you time, to save you headache, to save you decision making, right? Um, Things where, like, if you like, what's important about business ownership to be successful is to really find a role as the owner that you're gonna enjoy to do, because then you'll thrive and you'll be
Right.
excited to get up in the morning to go to work every day, right? And so where a lot of business owners fail is because they think that they're going to run a bike repair shop because they like working on bikes, right? But then the owner of the bike repair shop never gets to work on bikes because he's busy balancing the checkbook, finding supplies, vendors, lease negotiations, P&L
Mm-hmm.
management, like marketing, all the other stuff, right?
Right.
And so a franchise allows, not all of them, but many of them take some of that other stuff off the plate, depending on the model. And that's why it's important to work with like a coach or a consultant, a BAI broker, because
Mm-hmm.
they help you assess all that support and what it looks like and finds the fit for you as a business owner.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean, maybe you are someone who is a technician, knows how to work on cars or whatever, and so you think, maybe you have a mechanical background,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe you think like, oh, I should own an auto repair shop. But that's not, if that's not the role of the owner,
Right.
then that's a bad idea. Maybe you should go work for one. You know what I
Right.
mean? But if you
Right.
really want to be a business owner, maybe look at something else that you can take those transferable skills, and that's the role of the owner.
That's
And so
valuable. That's
that's
really
what a
good
franchise
insight.
is. It's not necessarily semi-absentee, to get back to your question, or absentee, but it
Right.
allows you to focus on like the role that is the right fit for you,
Mm-hmm.
and takes off your back some of those more centralized things like marketing and customer acquisition, processes, how to, what kind of banking systems to use, things like that.
That's great value. Thank you for
Mhm.
elaborating and sharing that. So right now, how many brands is Business Alliance Inc. Affiliated with or representing?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So we have, I think it's 380,
380.
right around that. Yeah.
Wow.
In our network
Okay.
currently. Um, they range from, like I said, startup
Mm-hmm.
brands that are maybe regional,
Mm-hmm.
5, 10 locations, and they're very looking to just add one or two franchisees a year. And so they're kind of focused in a certain area of the country. Maybe they work with only a handful of our brokers, because they're just looking to grow in a certain area, right? And then we have some big national brands as well that are, up into Canada and even international, and are looking to grow anywhere and everywhere. And so, but yeah, I think in total it's just shy of 380 last
Mm-hmm.
time I checked.
And can you share with us, what would be like the smaller range of investment cost and smaller type versus like the larger? Like, just give us the.
Sure. Yeah, the one thing about franchising, I think that it lends itself very well to, is like empire builders. Like that's what it's built for, to where you're not in the weeds, like I said, under the hood doing the oil change. Like you're the business owner, you're
Mm-hmm.
running the business. So a lot of franchises, they love to have like what's called multi-unit owners. And so that's where we get to what you're talking about, where you do become semi-absentee or passive, to where you have P&L management duties and, banking duties, and you're managing managers, right? Like
Right.
that's the goal for everybody,
Yes.
right? And the franchising systems really lend themselves well to that kind of a growth path. So depending on what your goals are, an investment could start as low as, I mean, we have a couple of vending concepts where, like, if you're just getting some machines, right, like
Mm-hmm.
$5,000, $10,000,
Oh
it's
wow.
per machine, depending on how many
Yeah. Yeah.
machines you're going to buy, right? And then upwards of, a couple million if it's I don't know, a pet store,
Yeah.
that's a big 20,000 square foot build out,
Mm-hmm.
you're in it for 3 to 5 million, right?
Yeah.
So it's a huge range.
Huge. Huge. Right.
um
Right. Right.
I'd say like the average though, like
Mm-hmm.
what like, I mean, our consultants did there was about 400 placements last year,
Okay.
and the average investment is right around, it seems to always be like right around 300,000.
Three
That's
hundred
kind of
thousand.
like the,
Yeah. That's what I've seen.
the
Mm-hmm.
run of the mill, whether it's a brick and mortar
Mm-hmm.
coffee shop,
Mm-hmm.
like you think of Main Street, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's like $300,000 to $500,000 for like a single unit. So now if
Mm-hmm.
someone's going to buy three of them, now you're looking at 900,000, right?
Yeah.
And then even if it's like a senior care, or
Mm-hmm.
something that doesn't require a big heavy build out, that's still a heavy capital investment.
Right.
It's a lot of people, it's a lot of payroll. So you're still in that, 250 to
Yeah.
$400,000 range.
That makes sense. So let's someone starting out, like you said, the goal potentially is to own multiple units, multiple locations. Starting out
Hmm.
with one, potentially goal get to three or four or five units. What's the timeline or span? For someone who doesn't have the ability to start with three, four, or five, but it's going to start with
Hmm.
one and then potentially grow to three, four, or five, to where they can play that more, like you said, passive ownership role. Handling
Hmm.
the back office administration, and then delegate management. What's that look
Hmm.
like in general? 2 years, 5 years?
Yeah, I mean everybody's different, right? And the business is different. So I would kind of defer to the franchisor, to lay that out. If you're serious and that's your goal is to build an empire, like think about that from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Like what is your end goal? You know, are you looking to move into a situation where you own the same business for the next 20 years because then it becomes passive and you renew your franchise agreement every 10 years and you manage the manager, or are you looking something that you can build for 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
get in at a lower dollar amount, right?
Mm-hmm.
Build it up for 2 or 3 years and then sell it and then flip it into a larger business and then a large, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's a different strategy. Of
Okay.
course, talk to your banker,
Right.
talk to them about, the best use of your funds. I mean, I see sometimes a lot of people, they'll tap into things like home equity or their 401k, like you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
too soon when maybe they should have gotten an SBA loan
Mm-hmm.
first
Mm-hmm.
because it's when they have those things in there, they're afraid to take on debt, but it's easier to take on the debt when you
Right.
have equity, right?
Right.
And then you could then you can put together a plan, right? Like
Right.
if it's like, okay, I can get an SBA loan today for 200,000, that's one location,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have $250,000 in a 401k that I could also use. That's one location.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I won't touch that 401k today though.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take on the debt
Right.
because interest rates just came down, right? We know that
Mm-hmm.
high five through the
Yeah.
through the screen, or it's a good time to get a loan. Right? So
Yeah.
maybe I'll do that SBA loan today, knowing full well that my goal is to do a 401k rollover
Right.
in 18 months
Mm-hmm.
for my second location, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then by looking at my cash flow projections, within 3 years, I'm going to have enough cash flow to pay off my SBA loan and open up a third location, right? So you put that
Right.
plan together from the very beginning, working again with the franchisor is
Uh-huh.
an important piece of this puzzle because you
Right.
got to make sure that they're on board with it and they're okay with it. With your lender, someone like Sebastian or whoever you're working with, a lender,
Mm-hmm.
and probably an advisor. That's what our coaches, our brokers do. They
Right.
help advise on those things as well, right? And so that it's kind of what BAI is able to help the whole piece of the puzzle
Put it
come
all together.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Awesome. Amazing.
Mhm.
Who are you seeing right now as your average, person? Like, what's the demographics look like of your average person wanting to start a franchise and actually getting in and being successful?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I mean, because here at BAI, like from where I sit, I mean, I work mostly with our members, and so
Mm-hmm.
I hear through our consultants, through the team of like, the age and demographics of who's starting a business. And it's really all over the place. We're seeing a huge influx this year,
Mm-hmm.
especially of like E2 visa clients
Mm-hmm.
and people immigrating to the U.S., which I think is great to see.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because there's different programs for them out there to where if they're immigrating to the U.S., they can get a visa if they start a business that then reinvests into the economy and adds jobs and whatnot. And the government likes to see a franchise
Mm-hmm.
backing them, so it's a much more clearer path for them to get their E2 or their EB5 visa,
Awesome.
so but I mean I don't remember off the top of my head. I look at those studies, typically annually, and I remember earlier this year it was like for the first time. I don't know if they passed them or not, but for the first time in a long time, the so the boomers have always been the number one franchise buyers for the last 20 years, right? Just for sheer numbers. But I want to say for the first time they were number two, and it was is it
Oh, wow.
the Gen X, right? Is
Really?
right below. Yeah, kind of past. I mean, think it's just because they're coming to maturity.
They're
They're in
coming
that
to, yeah.
age range where they've had a successful career for 15, 20 years, but now they're ready to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think it's because we lived through two severe economic downturns. Really three, I guess, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you go back to 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the first time right after 9/11 when everything kind of came to a screeching halt and there was a shock to the financial system. Then there was 2008, the housing
Right.
bubble. Obviously everyone remembers that, and then COVID,
Yeah.
right? And so now we've kind of recouped a lot of those losses, for lack of a better term, or the peel back that happened during COVID in 2020, 2021. That I think people are they're trying to hedge their bets, and they're
Mm-hmm.
saying, okay, yeah, my 401k is at an all-time high, but I've seen this before.
Right.
And maybe I should diversify
Right.
into something I can control, so that if when something else happens, I'm a
That's
little
a
bit
key
more
word right
insulated.
there. Control. I like that you said that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing that business gives you. Well, I mean, a lot of people, business ownership's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, you're not going to start printing money, right? You're going to put in a lot of work, you're going to put in a lot of effort, but you control it. You make it what it
Yeah.
is. And at the end of the day, you can really understand your paycheck
Yeah.
because you write it.
Yeah. And ultimately, your business can become a part of your legacy, for your
Mm-hmm.
inheritance, to your heirs and your succession plan.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up that way. Like I said, I started at a young age, in an entrepreneurial household. My father always owned convenience stores my whole life, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I learned some really good lessons. Where I'm thinking a 13, 14-year-old kid who, I'm a freshman in high school, and I have intentions to go play basketball with my friends after school, and I ride my bike to the court, and we start playing. But then I see my mom's car pull up, so that means that someone called in sick and I got to go pump gas at the gas station. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing for a 14-year-old kid, but it taught me,
Yeah.
again, like responsibility and priorities and order. And so much of this society today is slightly disordered, where they think
Mm-hmm.
like it's a consumerist mentality. Like
Mm-hmm.
you know, they don't feel like they need to put in to get an output,
Right.
and business ownership, you know, teaches you that, because then you can also get to the point where, you know, if you want to shut it off, you can shut it off. If you
Yeah.
want to take a day off, you can take a day. You totally control it. Now you have to be okay with the outcomes,
The repercussions. Right.
but
Mm-hmm.
there's no one who's putting it in for you, right?
Right. Right. Awesome. This is great. So let's talk about brokers. And the I would say, I guess, really kind of the heart and soul of Business Alliance is the brokers that are helping, because they're the ones that are helping folks find the businesses or
Mm-hmm.
the brands. And without the brokers, then the brands really, they're the ones that are kind of tying it together. They're the glue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a business opportunity through Business Alliance for brokers to make that their business? For if
Great
somebody
question.
wanted to be a broker, sorry.
Yeah, thank you for asking. No, great question. Because I'm sure there is a lot of people in your audience. I mean, entrepreneurs, who are, like enjoy researching businesses. Like they like to inspire people. They like to encourage people to bet on themselves and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, being a BAI consultant or a broker, a registered franchise broker with Business Alliance Inc. is a business opportunity in and of
In
itself,
itself.
right?
Okay.
So I mean, we have a training program, that we take them through. We guide them to launch their business, and then we continue to coach and support them, to help them find franchisees, close deals, negotiate contracts, all those sorts of things, right?
Amazing.
Um, and yeah, a great fit for us is someone who, is independent, likes to work from home, genuinely likes people, because this is a people business. Like you're having conversations, all day long with people, and just really enjoys having meaningful conversations, because the decision to invest in a franchise and in a business is probably the second biggest decision other than getting married that anyone's ever going to make, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe buying a house, so maybe it's third, maybe it's marriage, house, and then a business. But for some people, it's maybe even a bigger investment than their home,
Yeah.
and so you need to be, I guess, likable and empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's a fun business because it doesn't require a ton of capital, so you can kind of make it, what you want it to be. I mean, like, you need a laptop, you need a home office, you need an internet connection, right? So getting off the ground is pretty fast and easy. But then like we talked about, like getting out what you put in.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this business is all about for our brokers. I mean, because very very often you hear them saying, "Oh, I was on vacation in Aruba and 3 deals closed while I was away."
Nice.
So it's like, we tell people go on vacation more. So like the consultant lifestyle, can be really fun. But again, you have to put in the effort, you have to put in the work in
Right.
order to get
Is there
there.
any license requirements for someone to be a broker?
So it depends on the state, in terms of like specific licensing. Some, there's a couple franchising. That's a whole nother. Maybe we'll have to come back another time and have a whole other conversation about legalities of franchising.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of different rules with the FTC and whatnot.
Yeah.
But the
Take you up on
broker
that.
registrations, yeah, broker registrations required in Washington, New York, and soon to be in California. But that's part of what BAI does, right? Like we help keep abreast of those regulations and requirements, so then that way we can say, okay, fill out this form, that way they stay in compliance with localities. But this, it's a referral business. They're sending referrals to the brand, so they're not necessarily issuing contracts, they're not closing the deal, right? Like that's what's kind of fun about it. I mean, it's kind of a fun, and it can be a pain for
Hmm.
some as well, because I don't like to be all sunshine and rainbows. It's
Right.
like you're getting people excited, you're warming them up, but you're not necessarily the one you're not, there's no closing table
Right.
in
Right.
a
Okay.
franchise agreement, right? Because
Yeah.
it's you're a matchmaker.
You're just a matchmaker. That's amazing.
Yeah, like a franchisor doesn't, it's not like a mainstream business sale where
Hmm.
there's like a purchase and sale and a closing. A franchisor is awarding a franchise to a franchisee who's accepting the award. So you're very much a matchmaker where you're getting to know brands, you're researching them, you're finding out who their ideal fit is, you're really getting to, you're kind of falling in love with them yourself, but you really like them and you want to see them happy and you want to see them thrive.
Yeah.
And then you're getting to know your candidates and, hey, what's your desires, what's your passion, what are your goals, and you really care about them. So you're like, hey, you guys should meet each other,
Yeah.
because we think there's going to be a match here, and then you don't get out of the way, like you help and
You
you check in
facilitate.
with them, and
Hmm.
yeah, but you facilitate it exactly.
Hmm. That's amazing. So, I mean, you only listed about 3 or 4 states that require the licensing. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of potential for someone that wants to get into, the business
Yeah, and
with
the
a lot
license
of other
requirements are
states.
not heavy in those states. It's just filling out a form. I mean, really, what it is it's because they want to. There needs to be some sort of oversight. I think that each state will, follow, as things go on. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, there was no
Hmm.
regulation in the franchise brokerage space. But I've always felt like there was a day that was coming. I think we're very very close to it today, where like if someone invests in a franchise in the country in the United States of America, they're going to use almost 100% will use the services of a broker or a coach or a consultant, simply because it's no different than a real estate transaction. Like, why wouldn't you use a buyer's agent? Because you
Hmm.
can, if you're moving to a new area, you can only do so much research on yourself,
Right.
right? And it's stressful and it's hard to have your wife or your husband, your spouse to be your only. They're not unbiased, right?
Right.
So you need a third party, unbiased
Yeah.
person in the middle who you can bounce ideas off of and come to a real and feel like you come to a really good decision. And furthermore, like the franchisors, and I saw it myself because I was a franchisor. We didn't get into that part of my career. I was with a brand for as on the executive leadership team for about 5 years. And so what the reason why franchisors like to use brokers and consultants is when they award a franchise, right? They want that franchisee, like that's the starting line of a 10-year agreement plus a 10-year renewal. So almost a 20-year business relationship.
Hmm.
Okay. So again, it's very much like getting married,
Yeah.
right? And they're gonna own, quote unquote, a piece of this person's business for the next 20 years. They're not a partner, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
because the business, the franchisee is an independently owned business,
Hmm.
but they are doing business as whatever franchise company it is, right?
Hmm.
In exchange for a royalty. So they they really take it to heart and want to make sure that it's the right fit on both sides. And
Yeah.
so they found that working with coaches and brokers and consultants, they get a candidate who's already knocked out the fluff, who's narrowed it down, who's looked at 5, 10, 15 brands and done their homework and done their due
Yeah.
diligence, so that if they get to that starting line,
Hmm.
right, not the finish line, the starting line of signing a franchise agreement,
Right.
they know they have a franchisee who's committed for the
Yeah.
long term.
Yeah.
So it works for the brands, it works for the buyers because
Hmm.
the buyers feel like they've done their due diligence as well. And that's the role that our brokers play.
it kind of streamlines the process for everybody. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
if I was interested in becoming a broker, what would my steps be? How much would my cost be, and how what's my timeline to be able to start representing brands and
Sure.
matchmaking?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, you can go to businesslinesync.com.
Hmm.
There's a thing on there about become a broker. We have areas for, I mean, even for franchisors, if you are interested, if there's a franchisor out there listening to this and they want to join our network,
Hmm.
there's a thing about listing your franchise. You can join as a supplier. There's even a spot for buyers to learn about franchising, and those leads, people who are requesting information about becoming a buyer go to our brokers. So if you want to work with a registered BAI consultant to help you, search for a franchise. You can also go to businesslinesync.com. But yeah, so for someone potentially wants to become a broker, you fill out a form, you get connected to our team. We also take it seriously. Culture is super important to us in this business. We want people who are collaborative, who are accountable, who are respectful, who are ethical. So those are our four pillars: care.
Hmm.
And it takes 3 to 5 weeks, depending on the individual, a series of 8 or 10 phone calls and Zoom meetings to get to know that person and let them get to know us and our network and
Hmm.
make sure that they fit that criteria. Um, you're going to meet. You're going to have a call with our COO, Gina Johnson. You'll talk to our Chief Growth Officer, Don Shin. You'll talk to active consultants, who are doing this
Hmm.
right now. We'll give you a list. Pick up the phone, call them, get to know them, and make sure that this is the kind of network you want to be a part of. You also have a call with me, right? So yeah, if everyone is aligned and we move forward with this, it's an initial fee of $25,000 today at the time of this recording. So that covers your training, your onboarding, access to our back office, which has a whole library of I mean, actually, we have a funding 101 course that you built for us that our brokers can tap into, other knowledge share like that, right? Intellectual property and whatnot. Not just for the startup phase, but then also for ongoing continuing education and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
And then you're off to the races. It takes about 60 days from the moment you sign your affiliate agreement. That's
Hmm.
what it is, affiliate agreement, up until you're officially open for business.
Gotcha.
There's a structured training we take you through. Some people do it faster,
Hmm.
30, 45 days, but on average we see 60 days. That's when you're like generating leads and you're talking to people, and then obviously we have a full suite of services and support that we offer, whether it's a mastermind groups or peer support groups. We have an annual conference as well as smaller regional events, and then virtual business development webinars, things like that, daily throughout the year to support their business.
And I know we I can't hold you to it. No one's going to hold you to it. But what is the I guess the high end range of potential annual earnings for a broker, and what's your average broker experience?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. So yeah, that's a loaded question, right? And but the I guess that what I can say, just based on like business opportunity rules, and I can't make like an earnings claim, right?
Right.
Okay, but what I can say is that the average commission is going to be anywhere between 50 and 60% of the franchise fee. Okay, so that's what brokers earn, on a successful placement.
Okay.
There's no, again, it's like a real estate transaction, right? Where the candidate doesn't pay, the franchisee doesn't pay a fee to our brokers, the franchisor does,
Franchisor.
like an executive recruiter, right? If you're helping someone find a job, the executive recruiter is going to get like 50% of that first year salary or whatever, right?
Right.
Um, so the average franchise fee will probably be in the $30,000 to $60,000 range,
Okay.
so you're talking about a $15,000 to $30,000 commission. So let's
Commission.
say the average commission is $20,000 or $25,000 a year,
Hmm.
which I think last year our commission was just a little bit above 25,000.
Hmm.
It was like 26.5 or something in 2023. But that's because obviously there's multi-unit deals. So
Hmm.
if someone buys a 3-pack or a 5-pack, I mean, we had a
Wow.
deal that was $70,000 that just got invoiced this week. Um, so yeah, I mean, and then once you talk to consultants and you can kind of do the math. If you think, okay, if I put in a full-time effort, my first year, could I do 3 deals? Sure. And then my second year, would I do 6 and then 8 and then 12? And
Hmm.
that's where I think most brokers' goals is to get to where they're doing 1 deal a month.
Hmm.
Um, and does everyone get there? No. I'd say the average consultant is probably closing 5 or 6 a year. Um, So, and
What
if it
drives you
depends on what
forward?
your goals are.
Yeah, what
Yeah, I
drives
mean,
you forward?
everyone's goals are different, right? Some
Yeah,
people, they're happy with a work from home job, working, 25 to 40 hours a week,
right.
netting $150,000 a year. That's a nice gig for some people. Other people want to make 500. And, we have brokers that are doing, 600, $700,000 in commissions a year with very little over it, right?
That's awesome. Great. Wow, man. This was a great interview. I think we've given a lot of value to all parties involved. If you're
Mm-hmm.
someone who is thinking about looking at the franchise opportunity or looking for a brand, Business Alliance Inc. can match you with a broker, right? If you're
Mm-hmm.
potentially wanting to become a broker, you can get your mentorship and your get into the business through Business Alliance Inc. And become a broker and start matchmaking and receiving
Mm-hmm.
really good income and revenue. So that's a business opportunity by itself. If you're a brand, right, and you're wanting to plug into Business Alliance for their matchmaking uh, potential and what they can how bring buyers to you. If you're a buyer, so you're really touching
Mm-hmm.
on all aspects. And if you're a vendor in the space and you want to be able to service any part of the transaction or facilitate and be a part of the business alliance. Now I know that you guys have a conference, one or two conferences a year. You want to kind of promote
Mm-hmm.
those
Yeah,
conferences?
yeah. Sure, yeah. So we have our big annual conference next year, May 2025. It's May 5th is when it starts. It's called Momentum. We're going to be just outside of Las Vegas. I actually just finished up at least the first draft of the agenda. Those things oftentimes take, a lot of iterations. But we got a lot of really good things planned for that. I'm excited. And yeah, I mean, if we're actually running a campaign right now for brokers who come on board with BAI between now and the end of the year. This is September of 2024. They can attend conference for free. So now's a good time to get to get rolling for sure. We usually have about 120 brands that are
Mm-hmm.
there. And then there's also a little supplier show as well. So people who can support brokers business. And then, the goal is to have 120 brokers there as well.
Amazing, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Brandon, is there anything, just if you wanted to speak directly to the audience, any wisdom, any final, just words of encouragement to the market? I'm going to give you full screen
Mm-hmm.
so you could just speak to them directly, um,
Awesome.
and just whatever comes to your mind, to your heart that you want to share.
Sure, sure. Well, thank you for that, Sebastian. Thanks for having me on. And I mean, I think that if I was saying one thing, I know that, you and I have known each other for a long time. And, a lot of your audience are people who, um, have that desire, have that want, have that will to make a difference in their life via business ownership and entrepreneurship. And I'd say, take that risk, take the leap. It's, um, it's something that everyone can do if you do your homework and you get the right people around you. So someone like Sebastian and all he does to help coach you and help get your credit where it needs to be and help you get the funds to launch it, you're in good hands with him. And yeah, if a franchise is something that you would consider, definitely check out Business Alliance and we can get you connected with a broker who can get you on that path.
Amazing. Well, again, Brandon, thank you so much for your time today, for all the value you bring to the table. And I definitely want to take you up on your offer to get into the more legalities of franchising. So we
Sure.
could maybe do another video again real soon.
Yeah. Happy to be
Again,
back anytime.
thank you, man. So again, everyone, make sure you check out the link in the description below to get connected with Business Alliance Inc. I'm gonna have some unique links down there so that you can get connected. Whether you want to be a broker, whether you're looking for a franchise, if you're a supplier, or if you're a brand. So just look in the description below for those links. If this video was of value to you, please make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Let YouTube know that this video has great content that others should know about. That's how people are going to find out about this information and this content. So please like, subscribe, and share. Keep checking in for new and powerful content. Thanks for watching. It's the Approved Guy. Take great care.